Okay, so thank you for joining us today for another episode of Industry Hour hosted by the School of Engineering Advising Hub. We are featuring the environmental engineering major today, and I am going to share my screen with you, and we will get started on a presentation covering some career details about environmental engineering. You guys see everything okay? Okay, awesome. So our agenda for the evening is going to address some Center and Career Professional Development Overview, aka CCPD. We have an interview of professional panel by the School of Engineering Hub. That's myself, Karen Lewis. I am joined here by Jen Yeager, and I'm going to introduce the panelists shortly. And we're going to have a Q&A session. So the first thing that we generally talk to our first year students about and really encourage during our first year is connecting with the CCPD throughout your freshman year. And you're really going to do it over the course of your 4 years. We have an engineering liaison. Her name is Kristen Kettering, and her contact information is on this screen. If you do drop in hours, make sure you tell them that you're in engineering discipline so you could be connected with Kristen so she can assist you. She's very knowledgeable about all the engineering majors and the relationships that we have with employers throughout the United States and beyond. So the resources that the Career Center offers is obviously major and career exploration. So as an undeclared engineering student, it's really helpful to connect because sometimes seeing the careers that are available allow you to kind of work your way backward to determine what major you actually want to pursue. They do have drop-in hours Monday through Friday from 1 to 3. They have various workshops and stay tuned for your email and WebEx in order for us to give you updates on those as they come up. Professional headshots for any kind of interview and resume stuff that you might need. They have a Discord. We even have a clothing closet. So if you do land an interview and you don't have anything to wear, come check out the Career Center's clothing closet to help that out. And basically connecting on Handshake is how you're going to connect with the Career Center. So if you haven't set up your Handshake account yet, please do so. It's rpijoinhandshake.com. And we really want you to start early because establishing that relationship with Kristen and the team over there really ensures your success as a student as well. So environmental engineering is basically broad relationship in the Career Center with various employers. We're going to get into the details of, smaller majors here in School of Engineering. Usually our cohort size is under 20. So there is a very small, tight-knit group of students that are studying environmental engineering in each cohort. And these are some of the relationships that the Career Center has. This is not an inclusive list. So these are things that you're going to see as in the career fairs and as you discuss options with the Career Center. So some information. I have the wrong title up there. Environmental engineering, the average salary is $77,500 as reported from the class of 2023 RPI alum. You could see all the information that is listed here with all of the majors within the School of Engineering. This is reported. So like I said, we have 20 students that are graduating on average from the environmental engineering. So the range happens to be quite broad, but everybody who reports their salary is counted into this equation here. So now we're going to go forward and introduce our panelists. I'm actually going to have them introduce themselves, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen right here so we can see everybody. And we're going to start with Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill Nylick. I work for CDM Smith. I graduated RPI in 2007 from the environmental engineering program, and I live and work on Long Island, New York. Been at CDM since I graduated, so the career navigation worked pretty well for me, going to the career fairs and conferences and meeting up with people from my company. So it's worked out very well.
Great, thank you. Catherine.
I'm Catherine Ferris. I graduated from RPI with my master's in 2013. I did my undergrad at University of Pittsburgh, graduating in 2011. And I work at Arcadis. And I live in the Capital District. I'm just north up in Clifton Park. So originally from PA, but moved up here for grad school and have stuck around ever since.
And Mackenzie.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie. I'm originally from Central Massachusetts. I'm currently senior at RPI and I'm studying environmental engineering. But back as a freshman, I started out as an undeclared engineer. So,
Excellent, thanks for joining us. And Jen?
Hi there. My name is Jennifer Yeager. I'm here assisting today, especially with the chat, and I work alongside Karen in the School of Engineering First Year Advising Hub.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Now we're going to start with the questions right off the bat. A little bit about our office is we are a first year advising office, so all students come through our office, and a lot of our student population in the first year are undeclared engineers. So we are often having a conversation about what do you want to major in. So this question specifically is for Bill and Catherine. And can you tell us a little bit about your journey, or maybe it wasn't a very short journey, about how you decided to become an environmental engineer? And then we're going to follow up with Mackenzie, asking her specifically why you decided on engineering after being undecided originally. So we'll start with Bill.
Sure. So I would say I was encouraged by my high school guidance counselors to go into some kind of engineering discipline with focus on math and science being the things that I was most into in high school. And I was also very into the environment and protection, fishing and hiking, and looking for mushrooms and trying to find vernal pools and just being outside. So environmental, just the word in front of engineering sounded like it might be appropriate. I can't say that I knew a tremendous amount about it before I got into it, other than seemed like it'd be a good fit. So as I took my initial courses and became more familiar with it, it seemed like a good fit for me, and I just really enjoyed the variety between water and wastewater and odor control, cleaning up hazardous waste, landfills, whatever. It might not seem like a variety to some people, but to an environmental engineer in the field, I really enjoy that.
Excellent, thank you. Catherine, how about you?
So I decided that I was going to be an environmental engineer about 2 years into my career at Arcadis. So I had started at Pitt with a Russian and poli-sci double major, and then realized after I was doing my boyfriend's calculus homework that maybe I should go back to the sciences. So I'd always really liked bio and chemistry, so I decided to go into molecular biology and biochemistry. I also did a bunch of music, would play a ton of music at the Union at Pitt. And so I also decided to pick up a Bachelor of Arts in Music at the same time. So in terms of so that's got nothing to do with environmental engineering. But as I started to kind of, approach graduation and like look at jobs and look at kind of the next steps for those types of majors like molecular biology, biochemistry, you realize that a lot of those paths, the sciences versus the engineering, end up being like lab tech right out of school. And so, I'd always had, I grew up around, my family is all a bunch of engineers, and I always like to build things and things like that. So I even while I was my sophomore year, I was thinking about switching into engineering, and didn't want to spend the extra year because I was too far down that path. And I was like, oh no, can't do that. That has since bitten me in the butt. I was going to do chemical engineering. But yeah, so the people I was living with my senior year of college were into Engineers for a Sustainable World. And they were, one of my friends she was in a similar boat as me, transitioning from biology into the engineering world. And so I, was kind of thinking about it. Well, I like being outside, and this seems like it's a really good place where I can do, enjoy the outdoors while also, there are there's biology, there's chemistry applied in there, and then you also get to work with your hands, which are all things that I really enjoyed, appreciated, etc. Plus you get a little, pay boost from being an engineer versus just in the sciences. So ended up going and getting applying for my master's degree at RPI and getting accepted, and was still kind of on the fence because indecision's the key to flexibility. And so I finally, once I was at Arcadis and getting the ownership of the projects and really getting into it, I found that it was a really good place where, you take a look at what you do on the day to day, you're making the world a better place for people. And you can be so much more active of a participant in a career path versus a lot of the other career paths where you really don't know if you're really making the world a better place. With environmental engineering, you really do get to have that feeling. And so even if it's a bad day or anything like that, you still come back to it and it's like, oh yeah. And I made the world better. And that's at least one of my core beliefs. So understanding that can really help guide a career path.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
Told you
Mackenzie.
Mr. Pew this.
Mackenzie, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so I came in undeclared engineering because I knew I wanted to do engineering. I liked math, I liked science. And then I always had a passion for environmental justice and activism. And when I was, kind of looking through the curriculum for all the different majors, I saw that I could do things with water treatment. I could, there was classes on air quality, water reuse, solid and hazardous waste. And yeah, kind of, like you were saying, it's a major where I knew I could do good in the world as an engineer, and that was something that really drew me to it. And so I kind of just took the leap and went with it, and it's been a really awesome decision. And yeah, it's really cool that you get to do good in the world, and if you help on a project for a water treatment plant, it's you can drive by and physically see it and know the good that it's doing for the community. So that's kind of how I ended up in the major.
Fantastic. You guys sold everybody here already. I'm signing up. Now, I want to know, I'm going to talk to Bill and Catherine specifically about the day-to-day, what does your life look like in your career? And just tell us what it's like. Is it good? What are your favorite parts of your day? What are the things that you don't like as much? Just tell us everything. We'll start with Bill.
Sure. So let me see. So that's it's easier for me to point out things I don't like. So maybe I'll start with those. I do generally like my days. I like to work on a variety of different projects. So for me right now, I'm working on a couple different PFAS treatment jobs where we're taking samples from clients, sending them to our CDM has, we've got maybe 125 offices globally. We have a lab over in Bellevue, Washington. And so we'll send a lot of our water samples there. We're running them through different types of media to try to figure out what media works best treating the client's water that may or may not have PFAS in it. And so there's some interesting jobs. I have some other jobs where we're doing a geothermal system in Westchester County. And we're working with the community, going into people's homes, trying to figure out what the best fit would be to get them off fossil fuels, not geothermal heating and cooling systems. Another project in Yonkers, where we're upgrading wastewater treatment plants, odor control systems and new scrubbers, and getting better removals of all the odorous air that's coming off of their tanks. So I guess just listing all those projects to demonstrate the variety of different things that you might be able to get to work on, which is what I like. Maybe I have a little bit of an issue focusing, so having a bunch of different things to work on is more exciting to me. being able to jump from one to the next. So those are some, for sure, nice things that I really like about it. As my career moved on, I've been a CDM for 17 years now. I started to transition into a project management role and got my PMP certification. And some of the things that maybe I don't like as much about my day is dealing with the day-to-day finances and invoices and resource allocations, things that need to happen to make project successful and show up on time, and budget, and kind of deliver the results that are needed for the clients that they're looking for. So every aspect of the project is important, but some of those are a little less fun than others.
For sure. Thank you. And Catherine, tell us how you feel about your day to day.
About my day to day. Well, I think, similar to Bill, it's been a bit, like one of the things, we're both consultants. So that is kind of, to frame this is that we're both of us are in consulting, and that kind of jumping from project to project to project is that's kind of what consulting is. And so you have your clients and you talk with them, and they bring you their problems, and then you try to figure out their solutions. And then a lot of times we're the go-between between the regulatory agency like the EPA, or in New York State, we have the DEC. And then, in my case, I work in remediation, so I do remediation cleanups. So it's, whoever the responsible party is. And so we're that kind of that go-between. When if you're starting out in the career, a lot of the times you're working out in like treatment systems and doing stuff, you're kind of on the ground. Now, I'm 11 years in my career, and it's definitely transitioned into kind of being I'm a trusted advisor on projects where, I get brought in. I do a lot of arsenic work because arsenic's like one of the coolest, metalloids. So it's a very interesting chemistry and kind of challenging to treat on a lot of sites. So if there's a weird arsenic site, I get brought in. And as a result of that, I got to do a couple mining waste projects. There was one project in Ghana that I got to go in and design a treatability study to evaluate how to sequester and basically treat this arsenic dust to make it not leach, not go into water, so that it was going to be not impacting their groundwater. And I had a similar project up in Yellowknife, the Northwest Territories, where I got to do a technology review, a state of knowledge review, to evaluate how to address 237,000 tons of arsenic. More recently, I've been able to do we just started this injection to treat a really kind of an uncommon arsenic, thioarsenic. It's a sulfur arsenic species. Pretty uncommon. There's not a lot of research on it, but we're treating it in situ. So in the ground, we injected some iron, and we're like a month and a half in on it, and it's working. And this is stuff that has not had any, there's no papers on it. So this is just like looking at the base science and trying to figure out and work out like what actually is, what's happening there. And it's awesome. Those are the things. Like when I get to play with arsenic, it's like a good day. And I think the other thing that I really enjoy about this job is being able to be the communicator. I've always liked teaching. I thought about going into teaching, and I think that a lot of what I do now is communication. It's trying to be that, and it's a lot of writing. I spent most of today writing up a fate and transport evaluation, looking at these two different compounds and how they could both come from the same source, even though if you look at a groundwater plume down gradient, it's totally different. And looking at that, trying to digest that and present it in a way that could be used by non-technical folks. So that, because a lot of the people that you talk to, they're not an expert in arsenic. They're not an expert in chloroform or chlorobenzene or whatever. And so one of the roles that I really enjoy about this job is to be that translator, the technical translator, to go in and present that information. And in a way, I make tons of slides. That's both a blessing and a curse, depending on the day. But that's another part. I have luckily managed to not do a lot of the project management. So I have avoided so far the invoicing and all of that. I've been more in client development and more technical work. And I kind of want to stay there because that is, some people are very good and really find a lot of fulfillment in bringing projects, making sure all the financials are good and you have the forecasting. But I'm a little bit more big picture than that, I think. But we need both, so it takes all kinds.
Great, thank you so much. Mackenzie, can you tell us, I know you've done internships in the past, can you tell us what your perspective was on the day-to-day when you did an internship?
Yeah, for sure. So the first internship I did was primarily in water lead service line identification and replacement projects. So a lot of that was kind of more like maybe data analysis and organizing all of the information and data we had, as well as doing a lot of field work and going out door to door, going into people's homes and inspecting their service lines to determine whether they were lead. Last summer, my internship was in the water business line at a company called Ty and Bond. So that was more water treatment related projects. Did a lot of PFAS and iron and manganese treatment projects and some other like water main projects, asset management projects, things like that. And day to day for that was a lot more, like helping engineers with reports, um, reviewing reports, reviewing documents, as well as, we did go out in the field some days and do things like flow testing, and, some other field work, helping with like the funding aspects of the project as well. So I think that was really nice. Got to kind of like touch a lot of aspects of the water area. So yeah, those were a couple of my internship experiences.
Great, thank you. Now, you all collectively answered this question, but I kind of wanted your opinion on the industry in general. Students do ask us, am I going to be sitting behind a desk all day? Am I going to be in the field? Am I doing lab work? And I know as a consultant, you kind of do a hybrid of all of them, but what is your thoughts on the industry in general? Is it something that a student going into the career can choose, or is it hybrid throughout? Maybe elaborate a little bit on that for me, if you don't mind.
I can start.
Hey. Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we'll mix it up, the order. I think there is a lot of choice that you can make with this career, and you can, like, I have a good number of colleagues who have decided that they just want to be in the field, and so they manage to kind of, the way that they have developed their job is to be something that is field focused. So that's absolutely a way to have a career. If you want to just be outside and that's what you want to do, that's something that you can do. I think more often though, because that does come with some, I think some salary caps, because it's tough to go into a lot of the field work. Like, clients don't want to pay that. So that's something that you have to think about. When you're going into, I think ultimately a lot of the career paths do end up being more office focused. And then some, depending on if you're going to work, as for a big company, an industrial company, and you're doing like their environmental compliance stuff or things like that, because that is something that we've not really touched upon here, is that there is a whole aspect of environmental engineering that is more related to, like, you're the person that works for an industrial company and you're managing their liabilities or their hazardous waste manifest or things like that. So, or their, environmental health and safety. That's all very office based. I think the lab based, it's far more rare. And a lot of the times the lab work, there's a couple different small niche companies that have, like Arcadis also has an in-house environmental, treatability study lab, but a lot of those times it's environmental scientists and chemists that are working in that. It's not as common that it's an engineering led area. And I would say that that's pretty common, that it's more the scientists and the chemists that work in those labs, and there are not a lot of them. So I think that it's not often a lab based. It's good to have the understanding, like to have worked in the lab though. So just so that you can design, because I often design the experiments and then ship them off to somebody else and pray that they read the instructions correctly. So that happens too.
So yeah, I would say more likely early on in someone's career, or for example, like my career, I would help out more senior and junior engineers collecting field data, taking measurements, helping our environmental scientists swim canisters in for sub-slab systems to make sure that we sample the air underneath for dry cleaners to kind of see what's there. So just helping with a lot of things is what I found as a very entry-level engineer. Is you have to be kind of willing to help to figure out what you want to do, because I was naive and wasn't really aware of all the different aspects of environmental engineering, and I thought working for a consultant would give me the most exposure to all those different types. So between remediation, water, wastewater, odor control, doing landfills, digester gas, whatever. And now going into the different energy type fields that go along with it, vacation, reducing fossil fuels, and installing more geothermal systems. You do get to go, I know the question specifically being in the field, you get to go in the field a lot more, I would say, early on in your career. And then as you progress, you can either stay as a field employee or like a field type role and continue on with that sort of field work. And like was mentioned before, there may be some salary gaps that are associated with those. And there may be different opportunities if you become more in the office or project management or technical versus sales or whatever you want to go into. But I always found working in the field very, very fulfilling because you're actually doing something instead of, you hear us mention reports a lot already on this call, 20 minutes in, and you will, as an engineer, write lots of reports and the ability to write lots of specifications for projects and work on drawings and create a lot of digital paper these days. So getting out in the field and doing something more immediate is also nice.
I find that really helpful, and that's going to be how I explain it to the students when they ask now, because it definitely does come up. Mackenzie, do you have any feedback on that?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, that was kind of similar. Like, I think I saw a lot of the younger like staff engineers at my company get to go out into the field more. But like, I would go with my project manager and things to some of like meetings with clients and, you know, representatives from the town and things like that and construction meetings. So I think there was like still some opportunities like that to get out of the office. So yeah.
Thank you. Now, as I mentioned, this is one of the smaller majors within the School of Engineering. And students do express concern about securing a job upon graduation in one of those niche majors, as they refer to it. Can you give us your perspective on the current job market for new grads? Namely, this is for Bill and Catherine, since you're in the industry currently.
I'll jump in because I'm fresh off the career fair that RPI just had recently. And I understand that it might feel, you might feel anxious about trying to put yourself out there and find an employer, trying to find the right fit. Being on the other side now, receiving resumes and trying to get candidates, I see there are more openings in our company than applicants that we have. So I just did some quick searches before I jumped on to see our currently we've got 20 openings locally in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, 145 in the US. And I know like on Long Island where I'm at, we would love to have a few entry level environmental engineers just join. I would say at the career fair, I maybe spoke to 2 or 3. Yeah, I apply anywhere you like. I would not be hesitant. You can always say you're waiting for other offers to come in if they're putting pressure on you, but I would not worry about trying to find a job. To be frank, that I see so many openings and know so many other consultants that are also looking for entry level to junior level engineers, either with their bachelor's or master's, and yeah, a lot of openings, a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with Bill. We definitely have a need. I was talking with one of my friends who's also in the field. He's actually a hydrogeologist, and we were talking about the really like there's a very, very large lack of qualified hydrogeologists now. So that's like another aspect of this. I kind of think of all of like environmental engineering and like hydrogeology, geochemistry, like that whole area is kind of, as an environmental engineer, you're kind of in the middle, but there's a lot of flexibility that you can kind of develop. So if you like, groundwater flow, like I design injection systems, and that's part of my job, and that's kind of hydrogeology, but you're also dealing with the chemistry. So it's like a big combination. But yeah, like we really need hydrogeologists. So if anybody is like, mildly interested in groundwater flow, like take some geology classes and help supplement it, because it's super cool. And also we really, really need it. But yeah, like I wouldn't have any worry. And, it's job security. We've been kind of doing a great job making the world a little bit messy. So we're trying to clean it up. I always call environmental engineering as being the world's janitor, which is kind of it's like maybe a little bit unglamorous, but when you have like a key ring that has like 19 different keys from all of your water treatment systems, like you really do feel a little bit like the world's janitor. Hopefully that doesn't dissuade anybody. But yeah, there's always more to clean up.
I love that analogy. And Bill brought up the career fair, so that's my perfect segue to the next question. Because we had a career fair on campus a couple of weeks ago, do you guys feel that it's beneficial for a first-year student to attend despite being new to the college scene? And what advice would you offer to students in terms of pursuing internships and just communicating with employers during their college 4-year experience? You want to start with you, Bill, since you were physically at our career fair?
Sure. Yeah, I look forward to it every year. It's nice to come up and see how the campus has changed and see how much interest there is and what kind of candidates we get to pull from. But I would say as a first year student, I definitely never went to any career fairs when I was at RPI. It can be, I can see it being useful as far as an experience goes, and maybe if you're really trying to get an internship with a company nearby. I know for like our company, we don't tend to hire a lot of like first year students as interns. So I guess a couple of different questions specifically to first year students going to the career fair. Take it for what it's worth. You can walk around and get some experience and see what companies are out there. You may not even know what companies are even in the area or attending these career fairs, and you can get a feel for the type of employers that are there. As far as getting internships, I definitely recommend doing that. When I was in school, I didn't necessarily think of them as internships. I just thought of them as getting a job and finding a job that was relevant to my career path, as opposed to, there's nothing wrong with working wherever you feel the need to. But For example, when I would go home on breaks, I worked at a printing plant, worked in the wastewater treatment facility of it. So they used soy ink to make all their prints. And so we would treat that waste. I was the operator of a plate sludge press. And so I got to scrape all the sludge off with a spatula and figure out how to do little bench scale tests and all that. And then that eventually turned into treating some chrome wastewater that was used to kind of chrome and dechrome the cylinders that they use for printing. So it was a nice experience. It was local and it was maybe a little bit outside the box for trying to find an internship for a consultant or somewhere that you know is engineering related. But then at school, I worked at the Colony landfill when I was there. So walk around with a GPS backpack on my back and figure out how compact the garbage was every day, and check out the gas wells and see how they were producing, make sure that there was enough vacuum on them, see if there's any kind of liquid or leachate that needed to be removed. So I would say anything that you can do to put on your resume that is semi-relevant to your field, working at a consultant, if you want to potentially work at a consultant, could be great too. But just looking for some experiences that aren't necessarily employers at a career fair are nice ways to go about it as well. You don't have to just straight go to a career fair and find somebody who's working there and try to get an internship, because a lot of times we're looking to hire maybe junior or seniors into an internship that'll eventually turn it into a full-time position. Kind of try to snag them early as opposed to people that are graduating. Kind of do time bonds. So it's a good way to do it, but for first year students, maybe more as like a fact finding type experience.
Yeah, I would agree. I think going your freshman year, it's great to have a dry run. And it's like one of those things of just getting used to going up and talking to somebody and kind of going through, because it's really nerve-wracking to do that initially. And so, how do you practice it? You just go and you do it. I do agree that having an internship is good to have. That's something that when we are looking at resumes, it's something that is really helpful. I think that I did not have any internships when I was going because, I had that really non-traditional background. And so I think that did hurt me when I was initially going to apply for jobs right out of school. That was something that I kind of had to overcome, and it was through building the connections that I had, within RPI and networking that really ultimately got me my job. But you can do that as part of just kind of going and talking to people at the career fair, or just in general around. Use that handshake app and try to. I know that I'm part of that, and you can go in there and reach out and talk. I'm pretty open at reaching out, if you're on LinkedIn, and you just start building those connections, and that's kind of how I think really that's how jobs get landed ultimately, showing the initiative.
Yeah, I think similar to what you were saying, Catherine. I know as a freshman, I went to the career fairs as a freshman, and I went in kind of knowing okay, I'm probably not going to get hired, but I was so nervous when I went to my first career fair. And I think just having the experience of talking to employers makes you so much more confident when you go back the next year, and you kind of maybe are a little bit more qualified. Um, as far as advice for finding internships, I think my experience and some other people I've heard, kind of the finding your first internship is kind of the hardest when you have no experience under your belt. And I think the things that I found most helpful for actually getting interviews and getting hired was using literally any connections I had. My first internship, someone my professor had an engineer come and talk to the class about what they were doing at their company. So I just asked my professor for his contact information and reached out that way. And just using those kind of connections, I found to be the most helpful for getting interviews and things.
That's really great advice. All of you gave a great perspective on that, because students are so intimidated in their first year, and just kind of putting themselves out there is an obstacle. So we do encourage everybody to attend the career fairs. There's another one in February, FYI. So if you didn't have your test run in September, you can do it in February as well. Let's talk a little bit about the actual experience as a student. We uh, we talk about, like, students are given options to take elective courses in their time here at RPI. Based off of your experience, are there course electives, for example, talking about consulting and your invoices, would an economics course be beneficial, or management classes, programming, or even deeper environmental or chemistry classes? What do you feel would make a student more marketable upon graduation? We could start with whoever wants to chime in.
I can start. I think it's really helpful to have within the environmental engineering to have like organic chemistry, uh, because a lot of what we deal with are organic molecules, and so it's really helpful to kind of have at least a general idea of how they're like, what they look like, and then you can use like the fate and transport and absorption, just those different characteristics in your designs for, you know, a water treatment system or things like that. So I really suggest doing like having organic chemistry, even if it's just 1 year, like, or the first semester, because it's usually a 2-semester course, just so that you kind of are familiar with the words and the language. It's a tough class, but you know, if you remember that like negatives like positives and big things don't like big things, that's pretty much the answer to OChem. But that, I think, also a stats class, I don't know if it would make you more marketable. And I think that there might be a difference between like being marketable to get a job versus knowing things that are going to just be really helpful in the execution of whatever job you get. I feel that, you know, we deal with a lot of stats, we deal with a lot of toxicology reports and things like that, and just having, I've oftentimes kind of bemoaned not taking a college level stats. I kind of took the AP class and I was like, I'm done. And that's now 20 years ago, and I know nothing. And so that's definitely, having some stats under your belt is really helpful. And going into the geology, and I've already plugged hydrogeo to death, but like having a good understanding of like the geology and some of those as electives too, I think are really good to, if you're interested in going into remediation. I think if you're, you know, going to be water treatment design for, you know, like a municipality or something like that, you might not need that. OChem though, I will die on that hill. So yeah.
I would say, I know sounds like it's been changed since I was at RPI, but AutoCAD was something that I wish was offered when I was there. And we had SolidWorks, which is a different program for making drawings, doing things like that. And so I was made aware that AutoCAD is a much more commonly used program for engineers and consultants moving out of school. So I actually took it during the summer at a local community college, just to put on my resume to show that I understood it a little bit. But that is something I would definitely encourage any the environmental engineer. It sounds like they're maybe in that class right now, but that is a really good one. Very useful. I know at our company, you may not necessarily be operating it yourself when you come in, but somebody who has a basis of knowledge that kind of knows how it works and can at least like open drawings, pop them out, and do things like that is extremely helpful. And I know that some other firms, some of the entry level engineers will do the CAD work themselves. So having that knowledge is extremely helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys, I obviously like I took the 1 credit CAD course when I was at, you know, a freshman. Um, yeah, I think like classes like that where like you're getting a hold of softwares are always helpful. I know when I was at my first internship at a little bit smaller firm, I kind of wish I had some GIS experience. There is a course in GIS, it's an environmental science course, and I'm thinking of taking that next semester just because I think, it's like always good to know another software. So I think like those kind of classes can maybe be helpful depending on the internship, the job.
As you mentioned, other electives, it just occurred to me when I was there, I actually did a minor in science, technology, and society. So it was a lot of ethics and whether or not just because you can engineer something a certain way is it actually beneficial for the community, and it's very big on volunteerism. So that was a really nice way to see how engineering impacts more than just like your wastewater plant or maybe where the outfall is or other things like that. But getting into issues like seeing how the Pinto was designed and why it was such a terrible vehicle, or why there should be some kind of invasive species that's commonly planted next to a highway, why you shouldn't do that because it drives and kind of knocks out all the other more local habitat. But any of those sort of ethics or community type classes that gives you maybe a different perspective than the technical coursework would also be a really nice addition.
I also have another thought as I'm going through these. We do a lot of having some programming knowledge and going into we work in a lot of databases. Right now I have a 30 years of analytical data across a 25 square mile site that we try to that has quarterly sampling. So we've got massive quantities of data, and being able to write queries and search through stuff and be able to generate graphs and things like that, just using R or something like that, can be really helpful. We were working with somebody, she's a new hire, and she's been doing that, and it's so good because I don't know any programming because I didn't study that in school. And I know Excel. I can do some good stuff in Excel, which is also really important going in, like get comfortable with Excel during your college years, because there's an expectation when you start that you already know how to use stuff and you can graph things. And I know that I've worked with some folks coming out of school who it's something that they don't know very well. And that's kind of an expectation coming in. I don't know, Bill, if you agree with that, but yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, being familiar with the Microsoft Office suite, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
You mentioned PowerPoint earlier. I don't think I can go a week without going on PowerPoint or Excel every day for something. One thing I did, one course that I did use that I got very familiar with Microsoft Project and doing schedules. As a project manager, it's not necessarily the most exciting thing, but being able to put together like a well thought out schedule with activities that link from one to the next, and kind of show how maybe two activities might run concurrently for a while, putting lags in. It's not super technical, but it's something that is part of it. So that was a good thing to have to know. And a lot of jobs for us now is all of the any project that gets built, there tends to be a set of documents that gets created, the drawings and the specifications. Whenever a portion of a job gets built, you'll get a submittal that has what type of pumps are going to be installed, what type of piping, whatever it's going to be. And so we're using a lot of programs now for managing all the submittals and project documents that come from the contractors to us for review and send back. So being just familiar with how different types of programs work, and not being afraid to use them anyway, even if you don't feel comfortable, because you will have to use them no matter what, especially Excel though.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about post-undergrad. This is for Bill and Catherine. And considering you both did your master's degrees, can you tell us about why you chose to continue your education beyond your bachelor's, and what did that journey look like? Either can start.
Bill, all you.
I guess I'll start. So when I graduated in 2007, about half my class started working right away, and about the other half, say half, like a large number, again, around 20 people. The other half either stayed for their masters or got it somewhere else. And I wasn't sure if I'd wanted mine, so I just started working right away, and it worked out for me because the next year after that was the little mini recession we had, and there really weren't a whole lot of jobs available for those who stayed to get their masters. But then after that, my employer kind of encouraged me to go back and get my master's. They paid for 75% of it, so that was a big push for me. Something that will always be on my resume and just give me better understanding, able to take more electives like scheduling or ethics or other things that maybe I hadn't done yet. So for me, I ended up taking it at night at Manhattan College, or I think it's Manhattan University now in Riverdale. And it was nice. The drive wasn't great, being in class till 9:30 at night while you're working full time also wasn't the most fun, but it a little around 2 years later, taking 2 classes a semester, it was done, and I had that forever, so it was nice. But while studying for the PE, so that was a little bit of work trying to get all that done. But no, it was nice. It gives you, it helps your network. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier, and was already brought up on this call, is that growing your network is really beneficial to your work and future employer potential, and getting to know others that may be looking for a job, and your company might have an opening, and you say, oh, I remember I went to school with them getting my master's at night and they were a great student, maybe I'll see if they're available. So growing your network and maintaining those contacts is really nice, and seeing them at conferences or whatever organizations you might volunteer with, seeing them afterward is really nice to keep in touch with people.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, for me, the decision to go and pursue the master's was really a career change, kind of a total trajectory path change for me. So, so that's kind of why I ended up, you know, going and pursuing the master's. One thing that this call is for folks who are already in an engineering program and are just undeclared engineers. But if there were anybody who are like, maybe I don't want to do engineering and I want to go and maybe pursue the sciences, one of the things that I do regret is not continuing within an engineering field. There's the whole, to get your PE, it's a far easier process if you get an undergrad with an ABET accredited undergrad engineering degree. Because I didn't, I had to wait a substantial, like 8 years or something, to get to even qualify to take my FE and to go through that process, even with the master's degree. And then even now, like New York State now they just changed their requirements so that if you only have you need to have a degree in engineering to get your PE. They waived their the whole experience requirements, which used to be in place. So that is a recent change as of April. And I ended up being a little bit lazy because I was like, oh, I'll just get my PE. So now I'm in a little bit of a state of limbo where I may not actually qualify for a New York State PE because my undergrad is in, biochemistry. And so now there's like a far more hurdles. So if you are undecided, even in staying in engineering, I would highly suggest you stay in engineering if you have any inclination, because it will make that process so much easier. Like, you'll graduate, you can take your FE, and then you're already on that path, and like 5 years later you can get your PE. So those are some lessons learned from my own career. Eventually I'll get it, or I'll just go back to school and get my PhD, and then I'll have some letters after my name, but it'll be fine.
Thank you for that. Mackenzie, tell us what your plans are post-graduation.
Yeah, so I accepted a job for after graduation at the company that I did my last internship at, which is Ty and Bond, which is a civil and environmental engineering consulting firm. So I'll be working in their water business line and as a staff engineer. And I'm very excited. I'll get the opportunity to kind of try out different things, work in, drinking water treatment, PFAS, iron manganese treatment, water main projects, explore, wastewater treatment, and kind of just figure out what I want to do long term. So that is my current plan.
Amazing. And options are open for masters in the future if needed or wanted, I'm sure. Um, we did touch on the PE question a little bit here, but I do want to elaborate. So I think the answer is an astounding yes, that a PE license for an environmental engineer is important. Can you explain to our students what that is if they don't know, and what the process looks like? Hopefully that they get their BS in engineering first, as Catherine outlined specifically too. So feel free.
I feel like Catherine might be more in tune with what the requirements are now. No, okay, well then I'll
No,
do what it was.
I'm
I'll do what it was years ago. That's no. So when I graduated, I would say maybe a portion of our graduating class took the FE immediately. I waited. I wish I had not. Wish I took it right away. Instead, I just started working, and then I had to get back into study mode and study for it. So that was a poor choice on my part. So I definitely recommend take your FE as soon as you can. And then once you get your FE, you build your years of experience. Um, if you do get your master's before you plan on applying for the PE, you get an extra year of experience. So for myself, I got my master's while I was working, but I think I was in my last class by the time I was able to apply for my professional engineer's license, which is what PE stands for. So I didn't actually use my master's, but I would have been able to include an extra year, but just wasn't necessary at the time. So once you gain enough years of experience, 5 years, sometimes it takes more than the specific 5 years at your first employer because you're supposed to be doing things that are in relation to engineering. So if you're an individual that happens to be at a construction site and you're more doing oversight of contractors doing work for that first year or two, sometimes that doesn't necessarily get counted as full-time experience in engineering, and you may have to go an extra year or two past that. So I would recommend if you have some experiences like that with your employer, they're great experiences. I mean, I love working with engineers that have had relevant field experience because sometimes they have a little bit more realistic view of how to design things if they've seen things built as opposed to just seeing it on paper and in books and AutoCAD. So I might wait maybe 6 or 7 years to apply, maybe one extra year. 6 is a good easy number if you've got that sort of experience. Then applying for your PE, you have a bunch of different experiences that are listed on the sheet. Your employer or your manager is somebody who would sign off on that and say, yeah, Bill did work on this for 2 or 3 years or whatever it was. Send that to the state, gets accepted eventually, and then you're able to sit for the test. When I took the test, they were in-person tests, not at like the Pearson testing centers that I think it is now. So you would bring all your books with you that you felt like you might need. Put them on a little dolly. I created like an index of where to be able to find certain types of either air problems or wastewater or whatever, and have that index as like my first page to be able to find things quickly. And then, yeah, take the test and hopefully you pass. And I definitely would recommend not taking the test. Since it is at the electronic centers now, it's a little bit different, but I drove back up to Union College when it was offered just to take it there, not have to take it down in the city. I think it was at Pace University is where they offer it down here. And somewhere that has parking, you don't have to worry about tickets or where you can stay at overnight. Those are nice things to take into account. But yeah, it's not so much like that anymore. So getting your PE, I do feel is important if you plan on being especially consultant or design engineer, especially. It does come with a pay jump in some employers, ours it does. So that's a nice thing. It's like an off season raise once you get your PE, so it's a nice thing to look forward to. gonna put some letters to it.
I know that they did at this point for the environmental PE, like they separated at some point. It was like civil and environmental, and now there is an environmental specific one that does focus a little bit more on the chemistry. Um, yeah. So I know that that's a component. And I think one of the recommendations that just kind of as you start on that process is to just kind of keep a little bit of a log somewhere in an Excel file or somewhere just of your experience and your related stuff. You will thank yourself 6 years in the future when you can just go in there and like copy and paste it in and just say, here it is. I'm not relishing 11 years of retrospective like what did I do, in 2013. So that's, I think, do future person a favor and just start writing it down now. I do think that there is some, if you're working at a larger firm, I know plenty of engineers who actually don't have their PE, like decided not to pursue that. Because as long as you're working at a firm where there is someone available to stamp the final deliverables, you can work on things. So like there is that oversight. So, but I think that it is very valuable in consulting to have one, or at least have something that gives you some letters at the end of your name. My supervisor has a PhD, and so he's able to, when he needs to add some gravitas, he throws that on his signature. So it's good to have that. So it's something to pursue. But if something happens and it's not, that you're not able to get it. And the other thing is that you can get a PE in other states. Like there are, like each state has its own special PE process. So what Bill described is the New York State process. But if you're trying to get your PE, say you move to California and you need to get your California PE. There is another process for that. Most states, it's kind of the same with any accreditation, like if you're a teacher or any other professions. And all of this goes through like the office of the New York State Department of Education Professions Department for New York. But each state has their own process. Most states have reciprocity. So if you have a PE in Vermont, then you can go and you can request to have, like if say you move, you can go through a process to get a New York State license as well. But that is another process. And then also kind of, responsibilities associated with getting your professional engineering license. There is an obligation for continuing education. So you always, you have professional development credits that you'll need to continue to maintain, moving forward to maintain the accreditation. And in terms of the, kind of what the responsibilities are, when you stamp something as a professional engineer, you're going in there and you're saying that you've reviewed it, it's correct, and that it's, there's a level of responsibility that happens associated with when you stamp a document. And so it's not something that is just kind of, thrown around willy-nilly. When you stamp documents, it is, it's legal and binding. And so that's something else to just kind of think about, like that it is, it's like, any other professional degree or, like practicing medicine, like there's a level of responsibility associated with having the PE. That's not to scare anybody away from getting it. It's a really great thing, but just kind of to put it into a little bit of some more frame.
Great information and advice from all of you. So thank you. We're wrapping up on time, but I want to close this continuing with advice. Do you have advice that you would offer to a first-year student who's considering an environmental engineering major at this point, or any closing thoughts? This is a question for all of you.
I would join an organization. So getting to know what organizations are about. So when I was there, it was the Society of Environmental Professionals. It was like the student version of the New York Water Environment Association. which is the New York State Member Association of WEF, which is the Water Environment Corporation. So for environmental engineers, I would say WEF is one of the main ones that a lot of people will join. And then IWF is definitely a good one because that's where I found most of my networking. I was able to get a job by going to the NIWEA meetings in the Capitol chapter. There were some individuals that were really active at the CDM Smith offices that were local, at Bernie offices that were local, and as well as the Albany County Sewer District. So a lot of people that you want to know are involved in these associations, and they can kind of give you career advice. They can look at your resumes. They can help you get internships or even let you know when job offers are coming up, as opposed to showing up at a career fair with 100 other people trying to stand out that way. You can stand out by volunteering and showing up at events. Becoming an officer in those organizations is, I find seeing people that have that sort of initiative is also a really nice way to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was back in freshman year trying to decide my major, I was maybe a little scared that environmental engineering would be too niche, or like I had people tell me that, like it's too narrow of a field, you want people to get a job. And so I think, like as you were saying earlier, there's plenty of job opportunities. If it's something that you think is really interesting, I think definitely go for it, because it's always better to, be doing the thing that you're passionate about. And then just in general, I mean, yeah, use your connections. I found it helpful. Just go to career fairs, talk to people. Um, those like little nighttime or like evening sessions with employers that you can go to before the career fair, go to those because there's usually not that many people there. And like, yeah, just use your connections, use your professors, and yeah, that would be my advice.
The advice that I have is something that I've kind of used kind of throughout my whole journey, being incredibly undecided. Um, when I was kind of agonizing over whether or not I should go into, like a grad school program for, pharmaceuticals, or going into environmental engineering, because that was kind of where I was. My OChem professor, who is kind of my mentor at school, said, stay, just try 2 years. Even if it sucks, stay with something for 2 years. And then you can change, because 2 years is just long enough where you can kind of start to feel like, you can get, if it's just, initial jitters, 2 years will get you out of those. And it'll really allow you to learn about stuff. So, kind of going in, but it's not so long that you can't move, you can't transition at that point. And, I did that with my grad program. I did that with my career, and that was the whole 2 years at Arcadis. Like I kind of was there, and I was like, you know what, this is a place where I feel like this is a good place to land. And so knowing that you do have that flexibility, and you can change things, is, like, don't be anxious about it, is kind of, like my parting words, is that you really do have a lot of, life and opportunities in front of you as you're going through this process. And so, you know, make the decision, live in it for a couple years. And if you hate it, you can move, that's okay. So don't be anxious.
Thank you. And to be honest with you, a lot of our curriculum is set up in a way that allows students to kind of explore those majors and make that decision in their own time frame. So, taking the time to make that decision, I think is a really smart move. But here's my advice. If you do have interest in environmental engineering, come talk to me, because um, we can have a bigger conversation and customize some courses to allow you to explore that major specifically, even as soon as spring semester. So shameless plug for the hub. But I want to thank the panelists today, because you guys were really informative. I think Jen and I probably learned a lot just through this experience. So I'm grateful for your attendance. And, if students do have questions going forward, I hope that you would be comfortable with me kind of sharing your contact information if there is any follow-up. So we're going to end recording now, but we're going to wrap things up and say thank you and hope everybody has a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you, you too.